Welcome to RootsToFoods, the podcast where we dig deep into the world of agriculture, technology, and climate adaptation. I'm your host, Ovidiu Bujoran, Technical Director for Partnerships and Investments with AV Ventures, the impact investing arm of ACDI VOCA, a 60-year-old nonprofit US-based organization, and the global leader in market systems development. I designed the RootsToFoods podcast series because I deeply believe in the power of entrepreneurship to solve serious societal problems, such as food security, food resilience, and specifically access to economic opportunities. To unlock the potential of food resilience on the African continent, we need three paramount resources: scalable agriculture technologies, driven entrepreneurs, and smart impact investing capital. The purpose of our podcast is to bring leapfrogging and impactful ideas and entrepreneurs forward, while also inspiring the next wave of exceptional African entrepreneurship. Our podcast will feature breakthrough technologies, entrepreneurs, and organizations that quickly scale food system solutions, benefiting many African communities. RootsToFoods itself is an entrepreneurial effort of a small team of dedicated and caring professionals. We will build on the suggestions of our listeners and seek tenaciously to continuously improve the substance of our podcast and their production quality. The RootsToFoods podcast is a rich resource hub and community of entrepreneurs, executives, and investors in the Agri-Tech, food systems, and climate adaptation sectors in sub-Saharan Africa. Our first episode, breaking ground on enhancing innovative financing in agriculture, has been developed on the foundation of a very substantive panel conversation that took place during the 2023 US-Africa Business Summit that was organized by the Corporate Council on Africa. Our panel guests will be introduced by the panel moderator, Mr. Amadou Makhtar Ba, Executive Chairman of All Africa, one of the most reputable African media companies. Additionally, our podcast will feature an interview with one of the most dynamic entrepreneurs in AV Ventures portfolio, Mr. Moses Malagan, founder and CEO of Agri-Innova, a Ghanaian company that is a pioneer in digitizing agriculture in Africa. Stay tuned for insightful discussions, expert interviews, and actionable insights that will empower you to be a force for positive change in your community.
My name is Amadou Makhtar Ba, and I'm the Executive Chair of All Africa. Welcome to this session. Our session title is Driving Sustainable Development Through Innovative Financing. So today we are honored, ladies and gentlemen, to have a distinguished panel with a group of outstanding experts who are significant contributors to harnessing innovative financing models for sustainable development in Africa. So this morning we'll explore the transformative power of innovative financing and its potential to unlock Africa's immense potential for positive change. We are privileged this morning to have with us this morning Dr. Franny Leotier, who is the Senior Partner at Southbridge Group and CEO of Southbridge Investments. We also have with us this morning Aline Var, Director of Strategy and Business Development at the Foundation for Partnerships Initiatives in the Niger Delta, Nigeria. And also joining us this morning is Efe Brahima, Associate Principal and Head of Nigeria Advisory at Cross Boundary. We also have with us this morning Ovidiu, Technical Director of Partnership and Investments at Agri-Tech, AV Ventures. And last and certainly not least, we are honored to have Ambassador John Simon, who is the founding partner of Total Capital Impact. So without further ado, let's dive into the panel. And we want to start with Dr. Franny Leotier and Ambassador Simon to just explain the innovative ways in which philanthropic capital can be leveraged to attract market resources for investing with impact in Africa.
Thank you very much, Amadou, and it's great to see you, and congratulations on the great work that allafrica.com does in getting African messages out. Your question is very pertinent given the context, as you just said, which is meeting the Sustainable Development Goals and other important global, social, and climate-related goals. Because philanthropy has three characteristics that make it unique as a source of capital to deal with these types of problems. First, because it's patient. Philanthropy capital can be there for years. I have an example in the case of Zambia, where philanthropic capital from, in this case, the Rockefeller Foundation, supported for more than 20 years the idea that you could develop mini-grids that could receive renewable energy from distributed sources and then be plugged into the transmission network to be used across multiple countries. And that solution now is becoming so critical as we now do this major energy transition. So philanthropy was there early with the innovative, very risky idea, but that paid off. So the patience, I think, is one important characteristic. The other one is flexibility. I'm always quite amazed at how you can use philanthropic capital depending on which country it's coming from and how the structure of that capital was originally designed to actually fit in different levels of the capital stack that you need to get massive complex development projects off the ground. Many examples exist, but the one that I could pick up is the recent decision by IKEA Foundation, Bezos Earth Fund, and Rockefeller Foundation to put their money towards the goal of getting energy solutions across the world. And you have there the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, where the capital that's available, or $1.5 billion right now, can be used flexibly to drive these kinds of transformation, whether it's the policy dialogue, investing in a new private sector idea, or helping the government to achieve a major solution. The third characteristic, and I think this one is also quite critical, is how philanthropic capital actually can come in at different stages of a development problem, whether it's the early stages of feasibility, capacity building, skills development, and so on, or whether it's at the de-risking phase where you want to then crowd in other investors. And this flexibility of coming in at different points, I think, makes it a very unique source of capital. Another example there, you take what has been done, for example, by the Gates Foundation to eradicate polio. So whatever it takes to eradicate polio, the funding will be available. Or you take the Gavi for vaccines, or the HIV, AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria through the Global Fund. And I'm sure Ambassador Simon, which is where I met him actually at the Global Fund, would be another example of that kind of use of philanthropic capital. So I think patience, flexibility, and this sort of customizability to fit in the different stages of the development challenges would be the unique features of philanthropy.
I think they're all examples of what we call blended finance. So blended finance is really the concept of taking a whole spectrum of capital sources, all the way from pure grants on the one end, all the way up to almost commercial capital, and even in some cases purely commercial capital, and putting them together so that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And so that what you get as a result of blending the various sources of finance, the level of leverage mobilizes a lot more capital than what you would get if all you did is do a grant, or all you did is do an impact investment, or all you did is do a loan. And one thing to think about is that there's now a greater and greater pool of capital that's out there looking for impact as well as financial returns that's available to be leveraged with philanthropic capital. And so the leverage that you can get is growing all the time as you have more capital that is valuing both impact as well as financial returns. And just to put some numbers to this, the Global Impact Investment Network says that in their last survey, there's about more than $1 trillion of the assets under management that is focused on impact. Most of that is actually looking for about a market rate return, but a third is looking for a below market rate return, or even a return that's solely looking at capital preservation. So there's a significant number of investors out there who, if they can get their money back, make it impact. And the way that you can give those investors confidence that they can get their money back is to de-risk their investment with philanthropic capital. Often that is in the form of some sort of guarantee or first loss. Sometimes that comes through technical assistance. That's one of the most effective de-risking. And sometimes that comes through in terms of some sort of concessional equity or debt.
Absolutely critical. And I want to turn to Aline Var and Ovidiu to ask them, in addition to de-risking, how innovative financing models help overcome the traditional funding limitations for sustainable development projects.
Thanks, Amadou.
Yeah.
The oxymoron that is sustainable development with traditional philanthropic funding is the fact that philanthropic funding is limited in terms of time. You get a grant, you have it for a period of time, you report back on it, and then it ends. So whatever efforts are being done during that window is not sustainable, which is why, for me, it's an oxymoron. What happens with the blended finance opportunities is new generated capital that comes into these sectors in development projects that actually causes continuity, right? The other part of limitations that we are currently dealing with under philanthropic traditional funding is the turnaround, right? When you go in to apply for a grant, the turnaround time from application to actually having that funding, there's a large gap where there's a stagnation in actual program development. And the last part for me is once that has happened, then there is the uncertainty of continuity, right? So you're looking at philanthropic organizations that are functioning over a period of time on grant funding, on grant contributions, and beyond their programs, they're looking at their overhead, their operations, and the possibility of having to shut down because of gaps between contributions. So now aid agencies, government agencies around the world, due to COVID, that funding now has decreased immensely. So leaning on that can only stagnate the efforts in philanthropic programming. And switching to blended finance, we're looking at opportunities to actually pick up the ecosystem, bring regenerative capital into the regions, and actually start sustainable development.
Thank you very much, Aline.
Thank you, Amadou. It's a pleasure to be here. Very interesting points, both from Franny, Aline, and Ambassador. Our organization is working in 25 countries, 15 of which in Africa, and we build a hybrid model where ACDI VOCA provides the technical capacity building in the agriculture field. AV Ventures is the for-profit subsidiary, provides the impact investing capital, and we have built a functional model where we find synergies at the local level to connect the opportunities that are identified through the technical capacity building with the capital. But one point I want to talk about, because I heard the huge numbers from Ambassador Simon, and I think there is available capital, but the key is how to unlock it. And I worked in entrepreneurship for many years, including with 80 countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America. And one of the problem I see is actually, I use a metaphor of the ocean, and excuse the metaphor, maybe it's not the right one, but exemplifies the problem. When you look at the structure of an economy, you see on the far right, you'll see a handful of blue whales, the very big conglomerates or extractives, the very large companies. That on the far left, you have a ton of sardines, struggling entrepreneurs who are trying to make ends meet. And through natural selection, you have a handful, again, of tuna, right? Entrepreneurs that actually through natural selection, they remove the risk and they become investable. And then on the other hand, you have a lot of sitting capital waiting for the right scalable opportunities to be deployed. So where I think it's a very interesting point, and my organization is working on that, to address the missing middle. How can we build a more coherent stream of scalable ventures that will create the huge amount of jobs that are created for Africa? If you look at the population, Kenya graduates 1 million young people every year, only 500,000 jobs created. So every year adds like 500,000 on unemployment, right? So what we do with our family of funds, we have one focus on West Africa, on Ghana, one focus on Kenya, and one in Central Asia. We provide financing for the missing middle between 250K and 1 million. And we are also being actively engaged to do two things. One is to provide innovative financing through revenue-based loans. And second, through the comprehensive market linkages that we generate with the CDI VOCA project, we connect them to partners, to clients, to other financing opportunities with other investment firms. We are looking as a system, and we are seeking to partner with all the actors in the market to see how we can together, because this missing middle is everyone's opportunity.
Tell us a little bit more about the unique challenges and opportunities in adopting innovative financing models to address these development issues, whether it's poverty, infrastructure development, access to clean energy, healthcare, education, job creation?
No, thank you so much. And actually, that question lends itself to a lot of what my co-panelists have said. And I'll really just start with where Vidu stopped. There are a number of challenges with adopting innovative financing for sustainable development, but I'll hit on just a few. So the first is really just around the transaction dynamics that are involved in financing development. And when I think about the transaction dynamics, it covers a range of things like the risk perception, the size of the transaction, and the high cost of transaction. And really, as Ovidu said, when we think about financing development in Africa, financing SMEs are critical for that. I don't think we'll be able to reach our SDG goals without financing SMEs. But what you have is this conflict between what concessional capital is intended to do in financing sort of the early stage non-return generating entities and what commercial capital is traditionally intended to do. And that creates that missing middle like we've discussed. And really, this is an opportunity for, leveraging concession finance for de-risking in form of guarantees, in form of first loss capital, and in form of technical assistance to really mobilize that commercial capital that can help us achieve scale. The second challenge I wanted to hit on is the limited availability of bankable projects, essentially, and really this lends itself to technical assistance as an opportunity, really using grant capital and concession capital to provide technical assistance to SMEs, entrepreneurs that have these innovative business models and these innovative ideas. The final point I was going to hit on is a lack of internal capacity, or I want to say institutional constraints for the investors. So when I think about purely philanthropic organizations, a lot of them don't have the private sector or the investment specialists that can look at these transactions from a commercial lens, because you still need that sustainability. Or when I think about asset managers or institutional investors, a lot of them don't have the technical skill set to diligence these innovative business models. I've worked with several commercial banks and asset managers that really didn't understand how to diligence a renewable energy opportunity or a mini grid. And you have to work with them, basically building capacity, sharing benchmarks with them, and getting them comfortable with this space to be able to deploy capital. And I think both for investors, donors, as well as sort of the SMEs, there's a strong need for that capacity building and technical assistance that concessional capital can really help unlock, and thereby mobilizing commercial capital.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think the capacity building aspect is critical to really make a difference in this. But I want to turn back to Ambassador Jen Simon and Ovidu, just to ask you guys if you can talk to us a little bit more about the role of impact investing in driving innovation and sustainability in peace, security, while at the same time fostering sustainable economic practices on the continent.
Thank you. So one premise that we have at Tonback Capital, we are unabashedly an impact-first firm. In other words, we look to maximize impact with sustainable returns, not to maximize returns with sustainable impact. Is that there's a whole class of opportunities that produce viable returns, but not necessarily the returns that are attractive to purely commercial investors. And that for capital that's interested in impact, there's the opportunity to put that capital to work in ways that hit the SDGs, that deliver healthcare, deliver water, deliver food, and yet aren't necessarily going to hit the 20+% returns or the 10x multiples that many commercial investors are looking for. And just because something doesn't reach that level of expected return doesn't make it not worthwhile doing. And part of what my view of impact investment is, it's about broadening the aperture of what you see as reasonable opportunities to include those that provide real value to society and a sustainable return, not necessarily the best return that you can find out there. And over time, those returns, as you're able to prove out the model, may in fact look better and better, especially when you think about things like what we went through the great financial crisis, when some of the things that people thought were such great returning opportunities actually turned out not to be that way. I would like to pick up on one other thing that Effie said that I think is vitally important. The way you look at some of these opportunities is very different than a pure commercial investor might look at them. I mean, for instance, we have a financing vehicle that finances water cooperatives, which have difficulty getting financing from banks. And we finance the water cooperatives after they've been through a capacity building program that an NGO that identifies ways that they can improve their systems. They put in micrometers so they can charge people for how much water they use instead of charging a flat fee.
To build on the points of Efe and also Ambassador Simon, if we look very deep, we need to see that this missing middle issue, we need to fill the pipeline. And in my past work, the problem is similar. And I've done startup boot camps where we work with entrepreneurs at idea, seed, and early stage. All the security problems we have now, and I know there is an increasing set of problems in the Sahel region in Africa and some other parts, are driven by economics. How can we actually support entrepreneurs as the driving force at the local level to start building that level of coherence and providing solutions that would actually leapfrog, not just like incremental change. We are talking leapfrogging, the way M-Pesa in Kenya transformed the mobile payment sector. And like that, I bet there are so many other examples. But how can we put our minds together to organize a supporting structure, bringing the patient capital that Dr. Franny mentioned earlier, together with the government support? I'm not talking financial support here, I'm talking blessing, and with smart capital that is able to identify those scalable opportunities in different sectors, healthcare, agriculture, education, all of them. I supported in the past NSA Education in Kenya, for example. They provide an education solution for the Kibera slum in Nairobi, where young kids who drop out because they cannot solve their problems can get timely support via mobile solution. Now they're one of the most successful companies. I use it as an example where you can invest in a company that can solve broadly a problem. With our efforts with AV Ventures, we are actively involved in supporting entrepreneurs in agriculture in Burkina Faso through a partnership with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We think that by providing access to finance and supporting promising small and medium enterprises, then you can start unleashing this potential that we see, because we've seen how passionate African entrepreneurs are, and they are looking for creative solutions to solve these problems.
Absolutely. And amazing when I listen to you and you listen to the Sahel region with all the security challenges which are there. I mean, I think, this kind of conversation also needs to happen probably locally, because with all due respect to our governments and other leaders in the region, I mean, they need to hear more about these financing models and how they can be used in those areas, because quite frankly, I agree with you. 100%, most of the challenges we have primarily because of lack of opportunities. And if you can unlock opportunities using these models, and it's great. So I think, this is something which needs to happen locally too, this kind of conversation.
Build on that. So that's also part of our model as an organization, where we launch pilot funds in Ghana, in Kenya, and Central Asia, and now we are scaling up. For example, we are currently raising AVAS, Agri Ventures Africa SME Fund, $60 million impact fund for African and early growth stage SMEs operating in food systems, Agri-Tech, inclusive financial services, renewable energy, and blue economy. Primary countries of focus for AVAS will be Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Mozambique, and Burkina Faso. All of the 6 countries are countries where ACDI VOCA has multi-year USAID funded programs dedicated to market systems development. Our Africa SME Fund, AVAS, will be paired with a $6 million technical assistance fund to provide pre- and post-investment support, as well as comprehensive startup ecosystem support.
I want to pivot now back to Franny and also in this round of questions, because certainly there must be a role to the development bank. And how can the unique role, how can it interact with philanthropy and bilateral joint finance? And then, for FA, it's still in the conversation we call having, and if you can add a little bit more.
Thank you, Amadou, for the question. And I'll pick up on what OV and Ambassador Simon have said in this targeting impact at the community level to create jobs and address multiple SDGs using this opportunity that philanthropy capital provides, and the role then of MDBs within that. In the work that we did to the for the G20 capital adequacy framework for the multilateral development banks, we had several recommendations, but one block of recommendations was around what we called innovative finance. And the ideas there included, for example, how multilateral development banks can use philanthropic capital to de-risk, in the examples that come up here, to support long-term capacity building and technical assistance in areas that really require that local capacity building, because philanthropy is very well suited for that. And I'm sure with Aline's work in the Delta region, for instance, there are many examples there. And then thirdly, how philanthropic capital can also come and catalyze private investment, because we have a lot of market liquidity, and how do you really catalyze it to come into these opportunities. So the MDBs can play a critical role in three ways. First, by making available the knowledge that they have about those challenges. So how the SDGs stack up in a given country, what are the good entry points for resolving them, and what could be the potential solutions that could get you to scale. The second role MDBs can play is by crowding in philanthropic capital to support these areas that we've been talking about this morning. And there are many examples the MDBs have done. So I take the example of the Islamic Development Bank that you know very well. They were going to give a loan to Pakistan for polio. So who comes to the rescue? Philanthropy, to the Gates Foundation. So they came in and they said, look, we'll be happy to buy down the cost of capital for Pakistan to borrow in the markets. So what that did is it gave Pakistan the balance sheet of Islamic Development Bank as an MDB. It allowed Pakistan to borrow in the capital markets at a rate that they could afford, because otherwise it would be commercially too costly. And that gave them the resources they need to eradicate polio, which would never have happened before.
Thank you very much for that. Efe, do you want to shed more light on? Yeah.
Just out to what all our panelists have said around the importance of innovative financing models and how that can really address the challenges we face with traditional financing. I think there are three things that innovative financing models can do. The first is you can use innovative financing models to unlock existing pools of capital for new purposes. So when I think about development infrastructure in Africa, there's a huge need for local commercial debt and patient capital. And a great place to start is our pension funds. So if you think about Nigeria is sitting on $30 billion of AUM. And I think between 1 to 3% of that is being invested in energy infrastructure, renewable energy infrastructure. And there's huge potential to unlock that using concession funding. So if we can de-risk these projects and provide technical assistance to these projects and provide the pension funds with comfort, and even create vehicles that allow the pension funds to invest and allocate risk appropriately, there's an opportunity to unlock that pool of capital for development. The second opportunity is to unlock new sources of capital. So we're seeing innovative structures being deployed. I'll speak specifically to ideas like labeled bonds. So there's been issuances of green bonds, and even more recently terms of gender bonds. And really what you can do here is attract sort of impact-aligned capital from international sources to finance these projects that have the development impact metrics that international funders would be looking at. And then I think finally, what's really interesting with these innovative financing models is you can really drive outcomes. A lot of innovative financing models are starting to look towards results-based financing, and that really aligns the incentive of the company or developer outcomes, where you have milestone-based disbursements, where you have financial incentives to meet specific development outcomes. And I think these are great ways that innovative financing can really address some of the limitations that traditional financing can't. The storytelling, the traditional philanthropic storytelling, and actually marketing what it is that we are doing that is of value to the investor and to government. So we can be a relationship, but there is an internal shift that has to happen because it is something that is going to be invaluable.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for the panel conversation. We hope that you found the discussion engaging and informative. Now, we invite you to join us as we delve into the grassroots level, exploring how entrepreneurs are revolutionizing their financial strategies. In our upcoming interview, we will be joined by Mr. Moses Malagan, founder and CEO of Agri-Innova, a Ghanaian company that is a pioneer in digitizing agriculture in Africa. In our conversation, we will explore 3 key questions. Let's hear Mr. Malagan sharing his valuable and practical experiences in building Agri-Innova into a successful and dynamic African Agri-Tech business. Innovative financing often involves unconventional methods. How did you finance your agricultural venture? What challenges did you face in securing funding at the grassroots level? And how did you overcome these challenges?
So Agri-Innova is Agri-Tech startup in Ghana, providing digital innovations to other farmers on the continent of Africa. So As part of our work in Agri-Innova, we make farmers become market resilient, connect farmers to ready and guaranteed market using digital innovation. As you rightfully asked, innovative financing has to do with how best we are able to bypass the traditional approach to accessing funding. Globally, we operate in currently 4 value chains, that's the poultry, the maize, the soya, and we just added the shea nut value chain to it. So typically in the poultry value chain, we have poultry or livestock farmers on one side, and we also have the input dealers who are providing input like maize, soya beans, with the farmers use for their feed production on the other side. The farmers are not able to have enough funds to buy this maize or this input. And even if they do, they don't have the capacity to buy in the volumes, so they don't enjoy economies of scale. And likewise, these input dealers also are not able to reach out to these farmers in terms of maybe capacity of the farmers to pick certain quantity. So what we do as a company is, we sit in the middle, and on the ticket of digital innovation, we are able to solve this issue. And this is how we solve it. Typically, a poultry farmer who is in need of maize to prep feed for the birds, that's our USSD short code, and we get the information through our dashboard that this farmer wants products like maize for feed. Through the same code, the maize seller or the input dealer who is selling maize also dials to inform us he has large volumes of maize to sell. All right, so we speak to both sides of the coin, and we make sure we reach an agreement with the input dealer. So give us the maize for about 15 to 30 days, we'll pay you back. We just have to prove our credit worthiness to the input dealer. So when we get the maize, we then transport it straight to the poultry farmer or the group of poultry farmer in those community. Maybe some are taking quantities of maybe 50 bags, 100 bags, 200 bags. So we do kind of a cluster supply to them, and they pay back with either their broilers or poultry eggs. And so this is a kind of a practical demonstration of innovative financing, where we, on our end as a startup, on Agri-Tech, a company supporting farmers, we are through input financing, getting money or getting this kind of support to these farmers without actually giving them physical cash for them to go and buy whatever they need. And by this approach, they're able to get their inputs timely, they're able to get the quantities they need, and they are not going to sell to pay back, because we have the large markets, and we have off-take agreements with restaurants or with hotels, with institutions. So they pay back with their poultry eggs, and they pay back with their broiler, which they are very happy to do. And on the other side, we are creating constant markets for the inputs dealer. And indirectly, as a company, it's also helping with our balance sheets, because then we don't have to use so much of our operational capital. We use that of the inputs dealers' operational capital to support our activities in dealing with the farmers. So that's how innovative financing typically operates in the agri-tech space. Was about how to use innovations to bypass the traditional ways of going to the bank or raising to support farmers. And it's about scalability. How can we help them scale without necessarily putting cash? And that's what we do at Agri-Innova.
Is there any platform for crowdfunding for entrepreneurs? Have you utilized any of this modern technology or digital platforms to raise funds or manage finances for your agriculture venture?
Yes. So as a company, right from the beginning, our genesis has to do with partaking Agri-Tech challenge organized by the Cosmos Innovation Center, where we were able to initially raise our $50,000 to start with. Thereafter, we have also been involved in one or two activities that has landed us in some kind of few grants to support our dealings with farmers. There are many platforms that are available now, and they keep increasing, especially after the COVID-19 came in, and now the world has seen the need to focus on agriculture and countries becoming sovereign in terms of their food security. So there are a lot of interventions, especially in Africa, from the Western world, the US, with the Europe support improvement of agriculture, especially on the ticket of digitalization. So part of it, we have digital platforms that you are able to take advantage of, make some applications, meet some possible, depending on the angle you want. If you want in the form of a VC or investor, you are able to now start your fundraising process. Or if you want in the form of a grant, then maybe you kind of assess or look for projects that are in line with your purpose as a company, and you partner with those projects. And some of these projects have some support in terms of grants that enables you to also leverage on to fulfill the purpose of the project. There are a lot of platforms that are available and a lot of funding. MasterCard is pushing a lot. West Africa is also pushing a lot in terms of supporting the youth, the women, agricultural space.
Have you incorporated modern technologies or digital platforms to manage your finances and optimize your agricultural operations? And which mobile platforms are you currently using to manage and pay for your financial services?
One of our products have payment service integrated into it. So customers who are ordering through our Cocoa Market e-commerce or our Cocoa Market USSD dashboard or platform are able to make payments while they are requesting. And we work with Paystack fintech companies. So Paystack, I think it's in Nigeria. We have the APIs in our system. So we don't necessarily have to pay cash whilst you are making the order or the request. You can pay through mobile money, which we as a company, our mission is to digitalize agriculture. So our approach, everything we are doing is about how best we can use technology or basic digital solutions to improve or enhance whatever we are doing. In terms of payment to farmers whom we get that for, we do not pay cash as a company to farmers in Ghana, and most of them have mobile money, and some of them also have bank. So these are the two means by which we provide them service. Assuming a farmer sells soya beans to us or maize to us, the farmer instantly receives the payment on their mobile money number, which is also linked to the bank account of the person. So the person can, from the mobile money account, withdraw his or her cash instantly wherever they are. So we don't do cash payment at all. Everything is online or digital payment.
Thank you for joining us for this insightful episode of the Roots to Foods podcast. We hope that you enjoyed the interview with the CEO of Agri-Innova. If you are as excited as we are about cultivating financial solutions for sustainable agriculture, remember to subscribe to our podcast on your preferred platforms. Your support drives our mission to nurture ideas that plant the seed of change. Stay connected with us on social media for more resources, conversations, and opportunities to be part of the market transformation we are all envisioning. For this episode, thanks to our guests, colleagues at AV Ventures and ACDI Vocal Group, to our partners at the Corporate Council on Africa, Flori Leeser, John Olajide, Stacy Pompey, Biova Kabin, and Mima Nedelkovic, as well as to my colleagues Mavis Amedegbe from Ghana, David Kimathi from Kenya for their dedicated work in producing this podcast. Our podcast is also introducing a very valuable resource for entrepreneurs seeking to understand better how to access impact investing capital, the 2023 Annual Local Capital Provider Survey, produced by the Collaborative for Frontier Finance. This valuable report can be found at www.frontierfinance.org. I repeat, www.frontierfinance.org. I'm your host, Ovidiu Bujoran, and in our next episode, get ready to dive into another captivating topic: revolutionizing African agriculture through precision farming. We'll explore how cutting-edge technology is reshaping farming landscapes across Africa. Thank you again, and see you next time.